Yo, what's going on YouTube? Afro-Cuban here, and I'm back with a special video, a special 100th video. This is my 100th video on my YouTube page, so I wanted to do my first movie review, and today we will be reviewing James Gunn's Superman, a movie that I've been anticipating for almost a year. Actually, more than a year, since it first was announced that they were rebooting the DC universe. James Gunn is officially now running DC Studios and has already put out good quality content shows like Peacemaker and Creature Commandos. But now he will be releasing his first movie in this brand new universe. And that movie is none other than Superman. Now, there was a lot of controversy surrounding his suit, and it was receiving mixed reactions. Now, me personally, I wasn't a fan of it, but I'm so much of a Superman fan that I didn't let it bother me too much. I was more excited for the story that James Gunn was going to give us. Now, as I'm recording this, I literally just seen the movie last night, so all of my thoughts on the movie are basically still fresh on my mind. And so because of that, maybe some of the things that I'll mention in this review, they might be incorrect, or maybe I misinterpreted something wrong, because like I said, so far I've only seen the movie once, and that was last night. So these are my raw and immediate feelings on Superman. Okay, so right off the bat, let's address the elephant in the room. The $1 million question: is the movie good? Now, the simple answer would be yes. Yes, it's a good summer movie. If you're just looking to take your kids to go have fun at the movie theater, buy some popcorn and watch a bright, colorful world come to life on the big screen while also having action, heart, and humor, then yeah, I'd say it's actually a good movie. But this is where the problem lies. Now, it's a good movie, but I was disappointed. Now, full disclosure, this is going to be a spoiler review, but take that with a grain of salt because there's nothing really to spoil. I'm not even trying to be funny, other than maybe one or two character reveals in the third act. For example, we do find out who Ultraman is, and we also get a brief cameo from another hero. But other than that, there's not much to spoil. But out of respect for the people who haven't seen it yet and don't want to be spoiled about anything, this is my official spoiler warning. Now, this isn't going to be a 1 hour movie critique where I break down every little aspect of the film. I'm going to try to keep this as short and sweet as possible and briefly go over some of the characters and the plot and what I did and didn't like about each one. Okay, so first things first, let's go over what I did like about the movie. I actually like that this version of Superman is much more weaker and naive than we've seen in previous versions of the character. I get that this is a young Superman, so he's very Boy Scout and he wears his emotions on his sleeve. The chemistry between him and Lois was a 10 out of 10. I like that we can see that they're still fresh in their relationship, and I believe it's even confirmed that they've been only dating for maybe a few months, so they're still learning a lot about each other. The scene where she interviews him was done very well. She digs into him and asks him a bunch of tough questions, and you can see it actually starts to frustrate him because she's grilling him about different laws and ramifications of illegally entering different countries. But he doesn't see it that way. He just wants to save people. He doesn't see race or religion or politics. If someone needs his help, he's going to do whatever he can to help. So him and Lois, they have an argument about it, and the argument, it's very realistic. It's not over the top, and even though Clark raises his voice several times throughout the argument, it never comes off as threatening. In fact, it was the opposite. The madder and louder that he got, the more you realize that he was not in control of the conversation, because Lois keeps her cool and she keeps her calm tone of voice and she just keeps drilling into him. She even hurts his feelings towards the end of the argument and then he leaves. And I think that's the last time we see them share the screen together until the third act. So yeah, that little scene was done very well. And one other thing that I also liked that we see firsthand how much Superman cherishes all life, because we see him go out of his way to save a random dog and a random squirrel. And he even tries, Now, you guys can't see me, but I'm using air quotes. He quote unquote tries to save the kaiju monster. Now, I'll come back to that later on when I go over the things that bother me. But yeah, this is a Superman who wants to preserve all life, and I love that. Now, as for the Justice Gang, I feel like they served their part for what little scenes they were in. Now, the trailers and marketing made it seem like they were going to overshadow Superman and overcrowd the movie, but trust me, they have standout scenes, and we spend enough time with them to learn their personalities, but they're only in about maybe 15 to 20% of the movie. Well, except for Mr. Terrific, he's basically in the entire third act, but it never feels like Superman is taking a back seat, is what I mean. This is by far still a Superman movie. Alright, so let's talk about Lex. As a matter of fact, I'm going to make a bold statement right now that I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for, but this is by far the best big screen Lex Luthor and Lois Lane that we've ever gotten. Now, notice I said big screen because to me, Michael Rosenbaum still holds the title for the best Lex Luthor portrayal in all of live action media. But alright, let's get back to this version of Lex. Now, I feel like they made him very calculated, and he actually uses his money and resources to build a bunch of weapons and tech. And he actually also uses his intellect to outsmart Superman, and even to a certain extent outsmarts the US government. Because Lex basically stages a fake war between two foreign countries, and when Superman intervenes without the United States permission, Lex cons the US military into helping him take down Superman. So as we can see, Superman, Lois, and Lex Luthor all have good character reasons for doing what they do. Superman is basically the embodiment of good. He just wants to help whenever and wherever he's needed. Lois is a reporter who puts her needs to figure out the truth before anything and anyone, even her relationship with Clark. And as we see in the beginning, she doesn't hesitate to ask the hard questions, even if it means hurting her boyfriend's feelings or making him uncomfortable. Now, Lex is pretty much an evil genius who despises Superman and does everything in his power to either mess with Superman or physically hurt him. So, those are all main things that I did like about the film. Superman's heart, Lois's determination, and Lex's ruthless but calculated relentlessness towards Superman. Okay, so now let's get to the negative. And when I say negative, I don't mean that these are things that I hated, because to be honest, I didn't hate anything about this movie. Like I said, there were things that just disappointed me and left me a bit underwhelmed. Okay, so first off, there is way too much stuff going on in this movie. Like literally, the movie picks up halfway through the first act and it never slows down. For some people, that might be a good thing, but for others like me, we like for a movie to move at a smooth pace and take its time and let certain scenes breathe. For example, about 5 or 10 minutes into the movie, we immediately get thrown into a fight between Superman and the Hammer of Barabia. And then right after that, it's Superman versus the Kaiju. And then right after that, Superman gets arrested by the military. And then right after that, Superman gets trapped in a pocket universe. And then after that, I kid you not, we get a 10-minute sequence of Superman saving a green CGI baby while swimming through some kind of rainbow-colored CGI liquid as the liquid is being sucked into a black hole. Now that's just way too much going on. I swear it was just 10 minutes of bright colors and bad CGI being shoved in your face. And about halfway through the movie, you kind of sort of just become numb to it. And it gets to the point where most of the action scenes just come off as background noise. It's basically just a whole bunch of brightly lit explosions and punches being thrown at the screen, but there's no real substance or meaning behind it. The best way that I can describe it is just imagine your favorite flavor of cake is chocolate cake. So for your birthday, your family or friends or whatever, they bring you a chocolate cake and it has sprinkles, it has red velvet frosting, it has a whole bunch of bedazzling and brightly colored candles, and they bring it to you on a gold platter plate, and they're singing happy birthday, the whole nine. It's a big spectacle, and the cake is decorated with all of this expensive glitter and frosting. But then when you finally bite into the cake, it has no flavor. It tastes like dry bread. That's the feeling I had when I watched this movie. It's like, yeah, there's a whole lot of exterior elements that make the cake look pretty and presentable, but there's no flavor, no depth, no layers. Everything is just surface level entertainment. It's like Superman is the chocolate cake, and they're giving me my chocolate cake, and it has all of these pretty colors and frosting and all of these decorations going on. But when I actually bite down, there's no flavor, no fulfillment, no taste to savor. In fact, I'll go even further into detail. Remember when I said that Lex is actually one of the best parts of this movie? On the surface level, they made him calculating and evil, and basically he just hates Superman. But that's where it stops. There's no deeper reason to it. He basically just wants to kill Superman just to show the world that he can. I was hoping to get a deeper, more emotional reason behind his hate for Superman, especially in that final scene where Superman finally confronts Lex and gives Lex a monologue about how he puts one foot in front of the other and he makes mistakes just like any other human being. That was actually a great monologue, by the way. But after Superman finishes talking, we see Lex and there's tears coming from his eyes, and I'm waiting for that emotional payoff where Lex finally tells Superman where his hatred stems from. But no, I think Lex says something like, "You're a piece of shit," and then immediately Crypto barges in the room, and we basically just get the famous Hulk and Loki scene from Avengers. Crypto just starts fucking Lex up, and the scene, it pretty much just ends on that joke. Lex gets immediately taken to jail right afterwards. Now, you guys can say what you want about Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor, but there was at least hints of him not only wanting to kill Superman, but also wanting to expose that heroes and gods were not real and not always good. Because he even alluded to his father abusing him. He says something like, "There was no God to deliver me from daddy's fist and abomination," something like that. He says something like, God cannot be all merciful if he's all powerful, and if he's all powerful, he cannot be all merciful, something like that. And that was such a multi-layered monologue that made the audience, I don't want to say empathize, but at least it made us kind of see where his hatred was coming from. It's like deep down, Lex probably felt, my dad was supposed to be my hero, but instead he beat and abused me. So in his eyes, God cannot be real, because if he were real, why wouldn't he step in and save me from this abuse? And then Superman shows up and everyone reveres him as this new god. So now this gives Lex something to aim his anger at. This internal hatred that he has for not being saved from his own father, he can now take that hatred out on Superman. You see, just that one line from Jesse Eisenberg sparked a great backstory with emotional layers, without having to actually show us Lex's backstory. Now, some people may not agree with me. They probably just thought Lex was rambling and quoting gibberish from the Bible, so I can't fault them for that. But I will take it one step further. Remember, I said, in my eyes, Michael Rosenbaum is the greatest live-action Lex Luthor we've ever seen. I'm going to play a small clip and show you guys exactly why I say that.
You were born to be the chosen one. You're simply better than us.
And that always killed you?
No. No, what killed me is that you didn't even want it. You fought it, you hid from it. I would have taken it and relished it, embraced it.
My destiny wasn't yours to take.
I get that now. We have a destiny together, Clark. Only on different sides.
And I'll always be there to stop you. Always.
Oh, I'm counting on it.
Now, you see, this is why I love this version of Lex. He doesn't just hate Superman for the sake of being a villain. He resents Superman for having these godlike abilities and still wanting to live like a normal human and do human things. Lex feels like Superman is wasting his potential. As you see in that clip, Lex has a deranged look in his eyes and he says, "If I had your powers, I would embrace them and relish in it. All you do is run from them and resent them." It's eating at Lex that he's a human and he wishes that he can be a god. And Superman is basically a god that wants to be human. And it's that jealousy and resentment that drives Lex to want to prove that a mere man can be even better than a god. You see, my all-time favorite versions of Lex Luthor are the ones where he isn't just depicted as pure evil for the sake of being evil. You see, Lex isn't evil, he's misguided. And his jealousy towards Superman drives him to do some questionable and sometimes evil things. But deep down, even Lex wants to save the world. He just wishes that he had the powers to do it. And this is where Lex and Superman's ideologies would clash because Superman actually believes that if Lex were to actually use his intellect and his resources for good, he will be one of the greatest heroes to ever live. But instead, Lex lets his envy consume him. Now, this brings me back to that final scene in James Gunn's Superman, and oh, I just swear, I was just waiting for that similar payoff. I'm not saying have Lex break down in tears and pour his heart out. I just wish they gave us something, something that makes the audience go, "Oh, wow, that's why he hates metahumans." Or, "Damn, so that's why he hates Superman." Something like that. Because, once the part comes where Superman says, "I'm just a regular guy who wants to do good," he then says something like, "For the sake of the world, you can be that too, Lex." But then the scene is just cut short with the crypto joke, and then after that, we just see Lex being hauled off to prison. There was no emotional fulfillment, just a surface level victory of the hero defeating the bad guy. Alright, so now let's move on to the next topic. Another thing that kind of bothered me in this movie. The whole subplot about his biological parents sending Clark to Earth to rule it. Now, that was literally the dumbest shit I've ever seen or heard. It was so dumb that I actually thought, it's no way that this is real. At the end, there has to be some kind of a reveal that Lex has tampered with the message. But no, once again, it was just a surface level plot device. I was expecting a multi-layered reason behind it. Maybe Lex tampered with the video, or maybe he lied about what the words actually meant. And we see that it actually bothers Clark finding out that his parents sent him to Earth to rule over the humans, and Clark begins to question himself. And I was waiting for that deeper layered emotional payoff, but it's just quickly forgotten about. And in the end, it turns out that the message was actually real. Now, I know I said earlier that I didn't hate anything in this movie. I was just let down in certain parts. But now that I'm actually saying it out loud, I actually kind of hate that subplot about his birth parents. So now it's basically confirmed that Jor-El sent Kal-El to Earth to rule over the humans and have a bunch of wives and offspring Kryptonians. I kind of feel like that's a spit in the face of Jor-El's source material, because almost in every iteration I've ever seen, Jor-El was a kind man who predicted the destruction of Krypton and sent his only son to another planet to save him from the same fate of the rest of the Kryptonians. So now to have Jor-El basically say, "Hey, Earthlings are weak and stupid, so we're sending you there to rule over the planet and have a bunch of Kryptonian offspring so our people can live on." I kind of feel like that's just a slap in the face of who Jor-El is supposed to be. That's like if you take Batman and say Thomas and Martha Wayne were crime bosses. Thomas Wayne is a mob boss, and one day him and his wife get shot down by a rival gang. So Bruce grows up not wanting to be like his parents, so he becomes a hero. It's like, yeah, that's the surface level plot of his parents being killed. It's still there, but now you're basically spitting in the face of everything that the Wayne stood for. So I don't like that switch up that they tried to go for. But okay, so now let's talk about the Justice Gang. Now, like I said earlier, I didn't have a problem with them in the movie. I had my doubts at first that they would overshadow Superman and basically just overcrowd the movie, but they actually ended up serving their purpose and never overstayed their welcome. But just like the rest of the movie, they're just there to be surface level comedy relief or surface level characters to help move the plot along. And this actually brings me back to the kaiju fight. Now, when they all fought the kaiju and the Justice Gang ended up killing it, I thought that this would start a deeper layered conflict amongst the team. Well, amongst them and Superman, seeing as how Superman doesn't kill. Now, remember at the start of my review, I said Superman quote unquote tries to save the kaiju. Yeah, so basically, while Superman is fighting the kaiju, the Justice Gang shows up and they immediately kill it. And Superman doesn't seem too happy about it. He even says, "Hey, I was trying to find a way to stop the monster without hurting it." But then it's just immediately forgotten about and they move on to the next plot. Now, I know I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but once again, I was waiting for something deeper layered, like maybe the team butting heads with Superman over their ideological differences. The Justice Gang being the corporate heroes who get sent in by the government to stop a threat by any means necessary, and Superman being the anomaly. You know, the hero that doesn't follow orders or follow jurisdictions. He just wants to preserve life, good or bad. I was waiting for that deeper layered conflict, but it never came. Once again, it was just a surface level plot that was quickly forgotten about. Now, on to the next thing. I haven't talked about the movie's villain yet because there was no true villain in this movie. It's just a bunch of shit that gets thrown at Superman over and over again that he has to overcome. I mean, I guess you can kind of say Lex is the main villain since he's the one orchestrating most of the events that take place, but you never get the sense that there is some big villain that Superman has to stop. It's just basically a bunch of shit getting thrown at him back to back to back to back that he has to overcome. Now, as for Ultraman and the Engineer, I feel like they served their purpose. I didn't see anything wrong with them. They're basically just there so Superman can have something to punch. And as for the Ultraman reveal at the end, it didn't surprise me at all. Even when it happened, I kind of just brushed it off and said to myself, so he actually is a clone of Superman. Okay, because I knew 9 times out of 10 he was either going to be a clone or another Kryptonian. So I wasn't caught off guard at all. But this too was also just a surface level problem that was quickly forgotten about. Because when Ultraman takes his mask off to reveal that he's a clone, Superman basically says something like, "Oh, so this is how Lex got into my Fortress of Solitude. He has my DNA." And then they start fighting and Ultraman gets sucked into the black hole and then it's on to the next issue. As for Engineer, she was kind of a letdown for me. Well, I don't want to say that she was a letdown because I kind of didn't care or expect anything from her to begin with. But there were a few moments in the movie where Lex would do something or say something and the Engineer would give Lex a look like she didn't truly trust Lex. Like when they first get to the Fortress of Solitude and Lex opens the door, she turns and looks at Lex like, "Wait, how are you doing this? What aren't you telling me?" But that completely went nowhere. Just another surface level plot with no depth and no payoff. Uh, as for Crypto, I haven't spoken about Crypto. Well, because Crypto, he was fine. Once again, he's another character that serves his purpose. I actually like Crypto, and I hope that we can see him again. And we do find out that he actually belongs to Supergirl. I didn't mind the reveal of Supergirl. It was a subtle way of letting the audience see that we're now starting a brand new universe and there's more movies and more characters on the way. So I didn't mind that. I saw a couple of reviews where people had a problem with her acting like a drunk college girl, but I actually found that funny. I like that she will have her own personality in the DCU. She's going to be the reckless and rebellious little cousin that Superman probably has to keep in check. So I enjoyed that because Supergirl is usually depicted as just a girl version of Superman, and that would have been totally boring. So I can't wait for her movie. I'm just imagining that they're probably going to make her movie. She's probably going to act like Hancock, and that's probably going to be hilarious. I can't wait for that. I'm curious to see where they take her character. But moving on, one last thing before I go. Now, this is just a personal gripe of mine. Like, this is personal. I don't know if anybody else caught this. This is just me. But at the end of the movie, when Superman is talking to his robots, the main robot has a scar on his face, and he's asking Superman to give him a name. And oh, man, I swear to God, I was on the edge of my seat and my heart was racing because I thought, okay, we're finally going to have an actual deep layered payoff or something like some kind of setup to get me excited, because they zoom in on the robot and he has like this damage, scrapes and scratches and scars on his face, and the robot actually looks intimidating. And he's talking to Superman and he says something like, I don't want to be called number 4 anymore, I want a name. So I'm sitting there on the edge of my seat and I'm thinking, bro, if Superman calls him Brainiac, I'm going to lose my shit. Like, I wanted him to just say Brainiac or say something that hints at Brainiac, but it just ended up being another surface level joke, and Superman just calls him Gary and the scene moves on. Now, like I said, that was just a personal gripe of mine. I doubt anyone else was sitting there thinking about Brainiac. But for me, it's basically because I was just hoping for some cool Easter egg or cliffhanger to end the movie on, something to get me excited for the universe moving forward. Because I honestly thought we were going to have a cool Ultron moment, with a robot that was created to do good would later become evil or something. I don't know. Like I said, I think subconsciously I was just waiting for something to surprise me or catch me off guard, because literally everything in this movie was on the nose and surface level. Now that doesn't necessarily make this movie bad, because like I said, it's a good fun movie if you're just wanting to go see some summer popcorn explosion and action. But if you're going into it expecting anything to have like some kind of deeper meaning, you're going to be disappointed like I was. This movie reminds me of? It reminds me of Black Adam. Black Adam was very surface level. He's an anti-hero, so they're gonna have him mentioned every 10 minutes that he's willing to kill. And they bring in the government heroes to remind him every 10 minutes that killing is bad. And they just let Black Adam just go from scene to scene, punching and destroying stuff just for the sake of summer action. Now, that actually works for a character like Black Adam because, well, with all due respect, who gives a fuck about Black Adam? Nobody cares what his ideologies are. We just want to see him fuck shit up. But Superman is different. He stands for so much more. And I just wish we got to see more of his character and what he stands for and believes in. I wish we got to see a more deeper layered reason for why Lex is doing what he does. But we never get any of that. Like I said earlier, this entire movie just feels like a random Tuesday afternoon in Superman's life. It's like there's nothing deeper going on. It's just some shit is going on over there, Superman has to go stop it. Some shit is going on over here, Superman has to stop it. Oh, Lex is just mad and wants to kill or hurt Superman just for shits and giggles, basically. And that's basically the entirety of the movie. And that was it. But yeah, I think you guys get my point. I'm starting to sound like a broken record. This was just a basic surface level action movie. There was nothing deeper to it. There's nothing to get you excited for the universe. It was just nothing. You know what this reminds me of? I was just watching Angry Joe's review the other day, and he basically hit it right on the nose. He said that this movie actually does feel like a golden age comic book, and it actually does feel like the old animated cartoons. But the only problem is, it feels like you're watching the filler episode. The episode in between the good ones. And he's completely right. There was nothing meaningful or significant about anything that happens in this movie. you're just dropped right in the middle of a random crazy week in Superman's life. It's like, hey, welcome to Metropolis. Superman is arguing with his girlfriend. Now Superman is stopping a kaiju monster. Now he's preventing a wormhole from swallowing Metropolis. Lex gets caught and then he gets sent to prison. There's no rhyme or reason for anything that's happening. It's just happening because shit, it's Metropolis. Shit happens. And then the movie just ends. Now, it sounds like I'm shitting on the movie, but like I said several times, I actually had fun. It's undoubtedly a cool summer action blockbuster, but I just left the theater wishing I seen more or knew more about these characters other than what they showed us on the surface level. So anyways, guys, that's my full spoiler review of the new Superman movie. Now, I know it probably seems like I shitted on the movie this entire video, so people are probably expecting me to give it like a 3 or 4. But like I said, I actually had a lot of fun. The score that I would actually give this movie would be 6.5, maybe even a 7 out of 10. It's a good movie, and I actually do feel like it's a step in the right direction of building a new DC universe. And this movie didn't get me excited for things to come. I still have my same excitement prior to seeing this movie. Basically, I don't know if you guys get what I'm trying to say. I was already excited for the new DC universe to be brought to life. And this movie didn't raise or lower my excitement. That's the best way that I can put it. But like I said, it was still a fun movie, and I would give it a 6.5 out of 10. It wasn't bad. I would say it's slightly better than mid, but it did leave me feeling like something was missing. I felt like there was so much more internal character development that could have been shown. But I think they will correct these mistakes in the future. I'm still optimistic, and I still have faith in the DCU, and I do think that this is still a step in the right direction. But that's all I got for today. You can leave your comments down below if you agree or disagree with some of the things I mentioned in this review. Like I said, I literally just seen the movie last night, so some of the things I may have said or had issues with, I may have misinterpreted some of it, or maybe I need to go in for a second viewing. I may have missed some things, so there's some things I might be wrong about. But yeah, that's what the comment section is for. You guys can let me know down below. And until then, I guess I'll catch you nerds on the flip side.